On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Johnny Cash, often called the Man in Black, passed away on September 12, 2003 at the age of 71 from complications related to diabetes. His health had been in decline for years, worsened by a rare neurodegenerative condition and the profound grief of losing his wife, June Carter Cash, just 4 months earlier. His death marked the end of one of the most distinctive voices in American music, a voice that bridged country, rock, folk, and gospel, and spoke to the struggles of both the downtrodden and the defiant. Cash's passing reflected the challenges of an artist who carried the burdens of both physical illness and emotional loss, while continuing to create until the very end. In his final years, he recorded the Haunting American Recordings series with producer Rick Rubin, delivering stripped-down interpretations of classic songs and modern hits alike. These late works, particularly his rendition of Hurt, became poignant meditations on mortality, loss, and redemption. They revealed an era grappling with aging icons and the human inevitability of decline, yet also celebrated the enduring power of authenticity in art. The immediate consequences of his death were felt worldwide. Fans mourned not only the loss of a musician, but also the passing of a cultural voice who had been a symbol of resilience and rebellion for decades. Tributes poured in from across musical genres, underscoring his rare ability to transcend boundaries. His funeral brought together country legends, rock stars, and gospel singers, a reflection of the unity his music inspired. In the wake of his passing, his recording saw a surge in popularity, introducing his work to a new generation. Cash's death amplified his legend, solidifying him as more than just a performer. He became a moral voice in American culture, representing both the struggle against inner demons and the possibility of redemption. His black clothing, originally a protest for the poor and marginalized, became a lasting symbol of empathy and defiance. His life and death reflected values deeply tied to the American identity: resilience, faith, and the belief in second chances. Ultimately, Johnny Cash's passing reminds us of the deep connection between mortality and memory. We immortalize him not only through music, but also through the stories, films, and tributes that continue to celebrate his voice and vision. In remembering him, we see how art preserves humanity's search for meaning, turning loss into legacy and mortality into a reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit. Anthony Perkins, best remembered as Norman Bates in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, 1960, lived a life defined by artistic brilliance and personal struggle. His death on September 12, 1992, from AIDS-related pneumonia was not only the end of a celebrated career, but also a reflection of the cultural anxieties of his time. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, the AIDS epidemic carried immense stigma, and Perkins chose to keep his illness private until the very end. His passing highlighted both the human cost of the epidemic and the silence that fear often imposed on public figures of his generation. Perkins's death occurred in an era when the entertainment industry was beginning to grapple with how to discuss AIDS publicly. Hollywood had lost other major talents, and his passing added another name to a tragic list. In a final statement released after his death, Perkins wrote movingly about his faith, resilience, and refusal to view AIDS as a punishment. These words reflected not only his personal courage, but also the broader struggle of many who sought to humanize the epidemic at a time of misinformation and fear. The immediate consequences of his death were felt deeply within the film community. Perkins had been typecast for much of his career, yet he embraced Norman Bates with nuance, turning what could have been a one-dimensional villain into a complex, sympathetic figure. With his passing, fans and critics alike revisited his work, acknowledging how he redefined psychological horror and left an enduring mark on cinema. His death amplified his legend, transforming him from a working actor into a cultural icon whose legacy is inseparable from the evolution of modern horror. The resonance of Perkins's death reminds us of how mortality intersects with cultural memory. His career illustrates how an actor can become eternally linked with a single role, and his personal story reflects the social challenges of living authentically in a world that was not always accepting. In remembering him, we see how art can both reveal and conceal truths about its creators. Ultimately, Anthony Perkins's life and death reveal the power of performance to transcend time. He is immortalized not just in film reels, but also in the way his portrayal of Norman Bates continues to shape cinematic storytelling. Through retrospectives, documentaries, and the enduring popularity of Psycho, his memory is kept alive, proof that even in tragedy, art allows us to preserve human complexity and find meaning in loss. Barbara Jefford, one of Britain's most celebrated classical actresses, passed away on September 12, 2020, at the age of 90. Her death was attributed to natural causes, marking the end of a long life dedicated to the stage and screen. Jefford's passing represented more than the loss of an individual talent. It signaled the fading of a generation of actors who embodied the golden age of mid-20th century British theatre, when Shakespearean performance was central to cultural life and national identity. Jefford rose to prominence with the Royal Shakespeare Company and became renowned for her commanding interpretations of roles such as Lady Macbeth, Cleopatra, and Portia. Her work reflected an era when Shakespeare was not only an artistic pursuit, but also a cultural touchstone, serving as a bridge between tradition and modernity. To audiences, Jefford was a reminder of the enduring value of live performance in an age increasingly dominated by cinema and, later, digital media. Her death underscored the fragility of this theatrical lineage, as the art form she devoted her life to faced new challenges in the 21st century. The immediate impact of her passing was most deeply felt within the theater community. Colleagues and admirers reflected on her extraordinary voice and presence, qualities that seemed to embody the discipline, grandeur, and intensity of an earlier theatrical tradition. For younger actors, her career stood as both inspiration and challenge, a reminder that mastery of craft and language could elevate performance into something timeless. While her name may not have carried the household recognition of screen stars, within the world of theater she was revered as an exemplar of dedication and artistry. Her death did not necessarily shift the broader trajectory of cultural history, but it did amplify her legend within the sphere she most influenced. By leaving behind a legacy of recorded performances and memories of live ones, Jefford's life serves as a testament to the power of theater to outlive its moment. Her passing highlighted society's ongoing struggle to balance appreciation for enduring art forms with the lure of newer, faster modes of entertainment. Ultimately, Barbara Jefford's departure reminds us of how mortality intersects with art. Figures like her are immortalized not through monuments or global fame, but through the reverberation of their performances, passed down through generations of actors and audiences. In celebrating her, we see how art itself becomes a form of remembrance, preserving the human voice and spirit beyond the limitations of time and mortality. Boht, the English actress best known for her iconic role as Nellie Boswell in the 1980s BBC sitcom Bread, passed away on September 12, 2023, at the age of 91. Her death followed a period of declining health, as she had been living with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. This natural passing, though peaceful, reflected broader challenges of her era. An aging population increasingly confronting neurodegenerative diseases, and the growing societal awareness of how such illnesses affect not only individuals, but their families and communities. Boht's death marked the end of an era for many British television audiences. During the 1980s, Bread was one of the most watched shows in the UK, often drawing over 20 million viewers. Her character, Nellie Boswell, was the matriarch of a working-class Liverpool family, juggling economic hardship and domestic chaos with resilience and humor. In many ways, Boht's most famous role captured the values of her time: grit, resourcefulness, and the importance of family in navigating economic and social challenges. Her passing reminded fans of a television landscape that once united households around common cultural touchstones before the fragmentation of streaming and on-demand media. The immediate impact of her death was felt in the tributes that poured in from colleagues, fans, and the broader British entertainment industry. For many, Boht's performances symbolized a period when comedy was rooted in social realism, offering laughter not as escapism, but as a way to confront everyday struggles. Her death also underscored the importance of regional representation on television, as Bread showcased Liverpool life to the wider nation at a time when working-class stories were often overlooked. While Boht's passing did not alter the trajectory of television history, it amplified her legend as a performer whose career embodied the bridge between stage, screen, and a shifting cultural landscape. She remained a reminder that comedy, when grounded in truth, carries a lasting emotional power. Her death invites reflection on how society remembers figures like her. Unlike global superstars, Boht's legacy rests in the hearts of ordinary viewers who saw themselves in her characters. This demonstrates how memory and commemoration often extend beyond fame, reaching into the ways art shapes daily life. Through reruns, retrospectives, and the fond recollections of audiences, Jean Boht's presence endures, illustrating how performance can outlive mortality by preserving human warmth, wit, and resilience for future generations. Ramsey Lewis, the celebrated American jazz pianist and composer, passed away peacefully in his sleep on September 12, 2022, at the age of 87. His death, attributed to natural causes, marked the close of a remarkable life that spanned decades of musical innovation and cultural change. Lewis's passing reflected the natural rhythm of a generation of mid-20th century jazz greats gradually leaving the stage, while underscoring the enduring influence of their contributions to American music and identity. Lewis first rose to prominence in the 1960s with the Ramsey Lewis Trio, blending jazz with gospel, blues, and popular rhythms in ways that made the genre more accessible to mainstream audiences. His 1965 hit, The In Crowd, won him a Grammy Award and epitomized the era's desire for cross-cultural connections, where jazz could be both serious art and popular entertainment. In many ways, his career mirrored the shifting values of his time, breaking barriers of race and genre, uniting diverse audiences through music, and emphasizing collaboration and improvisation as vehicles for expression. The immediate response to his death was one of reverence and gratitude. Musicians, critics, and fans alike honored him as a bridge builder in music, someone who kept jazz alive while inviting new listeners to embrace it. His passing did not spark sudden cultural upheaval, but it did amplify his legend by reminding the public of the crucial role he played in shaping modern jazz's identity. Lewis's work also influenced generations of performers, from jazz traditionalists to contemporary artists who sample or reinterpret his recordings. His legacy extended beyond performance. As a radio and television host, he introduced countless listeners to jazz, ensuring the genre's relevance across eras. His death left a gap not only in performance but also in education and advocacy, reminding audiences that preserving cultural traditions requires both artistry and mentorship. Lewis's passing reveals humanity's deep connection to memory and art. While death silences the individual, the music endures, resonating with emotions, stories, and social currents long after the performer is gone. Through recordings, tributes, and the continued study of his craft, Ramsey Lewis is immortalized. His life and death underscore the power of music to transcend mortality, affirming that art remains one of the most profound ways humanity negotiates the balance between loss and remembrance. Jeremy Brett, the English actor best remembered for his definitive portrayal of Sherlock Holmes in the Granada television series, died on September 12, 1995, at the age of 61. His death, caused by heart failure brought on by cardiomyopathy, came after years of battling ill health, both physical and mental. The circumstances of his passing reflected the struggles of an artist who gave everything to his craft, embodying the intense personal costs that often accompany the pursuit of artistic excellence. Brett's interpretation of Holmes was unparalleled in its depth, nuance, and psychological complexity. Yet the very intensity that made his performance extraordinary also weighed heavily on him. He suffered from bipolar disorder, and he often admitted that embodying Holmes, a character of brilliance, but also emotional detachment, sometimes exacerbated his own inner battles. By the mid-1990s, his health had sharply declined. He appeared gaunt in his final television appearances, a living testament to the toll of dedication and illness. The immediate consequences of his death were profound within the world of television and theater. For many, Brett had become the Sherlock Holmes, so much so that his passing was felt as the loss of the great detective himself. Fans mourned not just the actor, but also the end of an era in Holmesian storytelling. His portrayal had reignited global interest in Arthur Conan Doyle's creation, influencing how the detective would be interpreted in later adaptations. In this way, his death amplified his legend. Brett became enshrined not only as a masterful actor, but also as an inseparable part of the Holmes mythos. Brett's passing underscores the vulnerability behind genius, reflecting a late 20th century awareness of the psychological struggles that often accompany creativity. In an era where mental health was only beginning to be discussed more openly, his life and death highlighted the importance of acknowledging the human being behind the art. Ultimately, Jeremy Brett's death invites reflection on how we remember cultural icons. Humanity immortalizes such figures not only through their recorded work, but also by weaving them into collective imagination. For Brett, his Holmes remains a living monument. Every rewatch of Granada's series breathes life back into him, ensuring that his artistry transcends mortality. His death, while marking an end, also secured his place in cultural memory, reminding us that through art, legacies endure long after the curtain falls. Blanche of Lancaster, born in 1345, lived during one of the most turbulent centuries in European history. She died on September 12, 1368, at just 22 years old, most likely from the plague, which had devastated Europe since the Black Death of 1347 to 1351, and continued to resurface in deadly waves. Her death was emblematic of the fragility of life in the Middle Ages, even for the nobility, when wealth and power offered little protection against disease. Blanche's life and death were tied closely to dynastic politics. As the daughter of Henry of Grosmont, the first Duke of Lancaster and wife of John of Gaunt, she embodied one of the most powerful alliances in England. Their marriage not only consolidated vast estates, but also gave birth to Henry Bolingbroke, the future King Henry IV. Blanche's untimely passing left John of Gaunt a widower at the height of his influence, forcing him to navigate the political and personal challenges of maintaining his dynasty alone. Yet, her memory lived on through her son, who would eventually depose Richard II, founding the Lancastrian line of English kings. The immediate consequences of Blanche's death were both personal and cultural. John of Gaunt ensured her commemoration by commissioning a magnificent tomb in St. Paul's Cathedral, which became a site of devotion and dynastic pride. More enduringly, Blanche's passing inspired Geoffrey Chaucer's The Book of the Duchess. In this allegorical poem, Chaucer used her death as the catalyst for a meditation on grief, memory, and the endurance of love, thus intertwining her legacy with the birth of English literary tradition. Blanche's death reflects the medieval era's intimate relationship with mortality. In a world shaped by plague, war, and short lifespans, death was not merely a private sorrow, but a public event that reshaped dynasties and inspired works of cultural significance. Her passing amplified her legend, transforming her from a young duchess into a figure immortalized in stone, poetry, and lineage. Her story reminds us of humanity's enduring impulse to resist mortality through memory and art. Though her life was brief, Blanche of Lancaster became a cornerstone of both political history and literary heritage. Through dynastic legacy, monumental architecture, and poetic remembrance, she exemplifies how figures of the past continue to live on, not only in history books but also in the cultural imagination.